Okay, we're now going to move on to the next phase of this exterior area, which will involve smoothing out the terrain. Because as you can see at the minute, it is rather samey in terms of the height. We have lots of straight lines that we want to break up. We need to sort of find out all these little holes and the spikes that we've left from all our initial moulding, which will easily be removed. And another thing we need to do is get the shear elevations sorted out, either smoothed down for walkable space, maybe enlarged or cut off in places. But generally the problem you'll have if you make a large elevation change like this and just leave it like that, in game it won't look particularly nice, because what it'll do is the texture will be stretched on the face itself, and it can look a bit undesirable, because the textures themselves look great, but if you stretch them a bit too much, you can have a problem. There is a good way of telling us how stretched your texture is. If you get to your terrain palette here, and we'll just click any options, we'll get the raised brush, whatever, and notice how the brush on the screen is now really stretched, in good, all the way from top to bottom. And that gives you a very good idea of just how much the textures are going to be pulled in one direction. So that one's not so bad actually; it's quite strong. But with that, you can see it really has stretched the brush there. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to kind of give a bit of tender loving care to these edges and just get them a little less stretchy. There's various ways we can achieve that, and of course there's other opportunities of which is putting placeables in front of it, like rocks or that kind of thing, and we will do that, but we don't want to be overusing them, because we need room for buildings and things as well. Looking at this, you might think, oh, how many buildings are we honestly going to get in here? Trust me, we can get quite a few in. It's not a massively populated area, and I've kind of deliberately cramped things up, so it kind of forces me to be resourceful with the space that's available. We can always create more room if we need to, but the idea is we just try and pack what we can into these tight cliffs, so then it will feel a bit more natural. We don't want great big distances between houses and things, because when you've got this much room to build with, in real life, you're going to make use of every single square foot. So we'll try and achieve that. So what we'll do then is we're now going to do a good deal of smoothing, using the smooth option, and raising and lowering as well. So we're going to start off by getting our smoothing brush, and we're going to make some tidy ups. And what we'll do just to demonstrate it all off to start with is we'll go to the sea floor. Now off camera I finished off the work that I started in the last video. So I showed the different levels of the seabed we're getting. So as you can see here, it gets quite deeper down as you go along, and we've got these sort of deeper little patches in places where the water's particularly deep. I mean, the players won't be going over here, but in terms of the view from the cliffs and that, it should give a nice variation in the colour and tone of the water. It does contribute to that if you've got a bit of depth and things, so we're going to go with that. What we're going to do then is just going to smooth off the harsh edges that we have. So as you see here, we have quite a jump between the seabed and the what will be the beach or the shoreline. So what we're going to do is use the smooth brush to make that less harsh. We want a gradual sort of slope instead of a step. So with smooth enabled, we're going to put the pressure down to 30%. I liked it to be nice and gradual, so I'd rather be able to click it into place than just holding down the mouse button. And we're going to make the outer brush a good deal larger. I'm going to get rid of this panel here because we don't need that right now. I'm going to change the outer to a larger. As you can see there, that the outer ring is going out, and that will give us a bit of a cushion and make it a bit more gradual in terms of the smoothing out. So we'll double it to twice that of the inner brush. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click once, and we've got a slight leveling out there. We'll do it a few more times and move the mouse along while we're doing it. Often helps. As you can see now, we now have a bit of a nice sort of slope going in there now. We may bring the little beach bit out in places. We may move it forward somewhat, but we'll come to that shortly. when we work out just how much room we have to play with here. Just click along, get that nicely smoothed, so we want the player to be able to enter the water just slightly, so it's always a good thing. And that's that there, and then we could do the same with these bits as well. Not that crucial because the player can't walk on these spots anyway, but it might just make, when you're looking at the surface of the water, it might just make things look a bit better, because you can see under the water slightly, depending on also your water settings, how choppy you want the water to be. So I am just going to sort of calm these somewhat. There we go. Looking a lot nicer already. And while you're smoothing, you'll find that the sort of lumpy bits that you left over from the moulding, like that one there and that one there, they'll just come straight back down. If you hold your mouse cursor over a spiky bit like that, and it will just gradually drop down. And there we are. So we don't have to be too fussy over details like this. If it's in the outer border of the area, the eye candy part, you don't have to worry too much about the detail if you don't want to. Just consider what the player will see. I mean, for example, right in this corner, they're really not going to see an awful lot there, so we just need it, relatively tidy. We don't have, it doesn't have to be a work of art, unless you want it to be. It's all up to you. But in practical terms, it's not a problem. We're going to have some rocks here, so we may actually have to drop this down later, but I'm going to leave that there for now. Bring that in there. But as you can see, looking down now, we have a much more sort of smoother look there. It's a bit less harsh. Let's chop these down to size. But yeah, the smooth is your friend. You'll be using smooth a lot when you're making exterior areas. Unless you're going to painstakingly do it all through just raising and lowering, but that could take you a long time, especially if it's a very sort of hilly area. I mean, if it's a generally flat area, you could probably get away with doing that. It'd probably be fine. Okay, so we've got the idea there. I'll do the rest of that again off camera, but up to the shore and the walkable space, we have that covered. Now, our next little challenge is now these stairs that we put in. As you can see, we have posts hanging from them, but we they're just floating in the air, which is going to look very silly. So what we need to do is just get the walkable space around the base of the stair also tied up as well, because there's not an awful lot of room to manoeuvre there. And we also need to break up these very harsh looking elevations here. So once again, with our smoothing brush, we're going to lower the pressure again, because we don't want to destroy our cliffs. So we're going to go with 20, and we'll drop this down to 4 on the inner brush, but we're now going to go to 14 on the outer brush, and we're just going to very gently click on these edges, and hopefully the stretchiness will reduce a little bit. That's it, just like that. So see, the ground level now is going to go up a little bit. That's absolutely fine. That's fine, because we'll put some rocks and things down on those. And that should just tidy it up a bit for us. We'll worry about that side later, because that's all going straight into the sea, and it's pretty much off the limits of the area anyway. That black line there is the limit for the player. Now what we're going to have to do here is we're going to have to raise the terrain. So we're going to go with raise. Click on that, and we'll start with a, should we go line? No, we'll go with a medium brush. We'll go with a low pressure because we don't want the terrain jumping up on us. We're going to target it around here, and then we're just going to push up very gently. I could have actually used the eyedropper. In fact, let's do that. So flatten is enabled, eyedropper, and what we'll do, we'll get the height of these sort of posts here, which is about there. We'll go with that. And now I'll hold down the mouse and we've got that in there, which ain't bad. Now we want to get to these sort of posts here, so once again in flatten we're going to hit the eyedropper and we're going to click around there. We'll paint that in there, and you can see now we've got into that bit there. This time we'll once again use the eyedropper, put it about there. Yeah, we've overrun the steps, that's fine. We're going to use the smooth tool to do the rest for us. So we're going to go back to smooth, and we've got our little brush we've prepared, and we're just going to click along the sides here. Don't worry if the terrain comes up onto your stairs, or if you are using stairs, but if that ever happens to you, don't worry. Smooth is your friend. Okay, so we managed to get into that position now. We could raise that up further if we wanted to. We may do that, but first I'm just going to cut out the harshness in this cliffside here. We'll do a bit of work to tidy up down here. In fact, what we'll do is we'll go to flatten, go to eyedropper, click on the ground, and then we now have ground level flattening, and we can just brush that in there, and we will create a little bit more room for our stair access now. Drop that in there, and we'll just bring this round a bit. Not bad at all. So we've got that in there. We now have some sort of access up the stairs, and we'll do a gentle raising just here, but we've already got a medium. We're going to drop the brush size to 4 and 4, and very gently raise our terrain. Just so there's a little less air running under the stairs. Very nice. So we've got this little crevice going in here. It's looking a bit jagged and spiky now, so we're going to just tidy that up. I'm going to change back to a medium sized brush now. We'll just get that leveled out. And that's pretty good for now. So we've removed the harsh stretching of the textures. I mean, there's still some stretching going on there, but it's not so bad now. We just need to do that again in this corner. We're going to be doing a few little extra things to these edges too, like we were going to do a bit of raising and lowering as well, just to give them a bit of height variance in places as well. But that's a good start there. We have one staircase and a cliff tidied up a bit. What we'll do now is we'll just give these a slight smoothing out. And now we're up to our next staircase, so we'll just have to do the same operation again. And I will use the flatten tool from the start this time, because I think it served us well last time. Right, so we'll drop that in there. Okay, and then I drop it again, and we'll do it at this height. I drop again, go to there, and then we'll get the smoother on in now. And once you've done this sort of thing with stairs and things a few times, it gets a lot simpler. You know, at least you get faster at doing it, because stairs can be a bit fiddly. But for me, it's trial and error, and you eventually learn. You know, you can use them for all kinds of weird, wonderful things. A bit like this, I suppose. We've got a weird little hole in this here which doesn't look quite right, so we'll go with flatten, get this, there we go, it's a bit better. Get a bit of smooth on that. And with the same problem again at the bottom of the stairs is a bit overrun the end there, but that's what we'll sort out. I'm going to use the raise here, and you can see why I kept the pressure low on this now, because if the pressure were really high it just would have been shooting up and it would have been just very hard to get right. Right, we'll go back to that, give it another tidy up. I'm going to run the smoother downhill like this, and that might give us a, yeah, that's helped out a bit, that has. And right, the ground's kind of floating off a bit from the top here. You do need to kind of make sure your bottom and top are sort of in line with the level of terrain that they're on. Let's get that smaller and put that in there. Where's that eyedropper? Let's get it to there. And go with the smallest brush this time, because I just want to make sure that the top of the stairs is absolutely at the right height. That's better. Okay, now it's just the bottom we need to tidy up. So once again, if we want to get that bottom step in line with the ground, we're just going to flatten, eyedropper, click on ground level, which is there. We'll go to a medium brush, maybe not quite that big, and get this tidied up here. So that's the bottom of the stairs, but we haven't really got much room to manoeuvre again, so we'll cut a bit more room for the player to move there. And that's that. We've got the top, we've got the bottom, we've got it reasonably tidy. So there we go. It's a small victory there in the long battle to continue. I'm going to save that there because I don't particularly want to go losing that. You know, do save often. I would suggest, you know, as soon as you finish a particular task, save. You know, it's a particularly fiddly task like we've just done there. You definitely want to be saving that. So we now have access to this level. I mean, if we bake this area now, you should find the player can walk up and down these without any difficulty, and probably even up there as well. I mean, there's a bit of fine tuning to do. We need to get rid of these ugly leftovers that I've left from my moulding. Okay, so we're saved, we're good to go. What we'll do now is we shall again apply some smoothing to this cliff line here, and we will sort of get these stairs sorted out as well and get them into a shape that we're happy with. But we'll get this this elevation here tidied up. So with the aid of our smoothing brush, we'll go with a medium again, and once again we're going to increase the outer to double the size, so it'll be 12, and we're just going to very gently just click. Try not to hold the mouse button down unless you really want a massive smooth done to it. But by doing it by clicking one, you never know, how many times you've clicked on one particular part. So you may get variations of smoothness, and that's a good quality to have, because you don't want all your terrain looking similar or or too samey. At least nothing that the player could readily detect. Just by looking casually that oh this is all the same. It's just breaks it up a little bit. So here we've got these ridiculous spiky bits that I've left over here, and they could actually prove useful, to be fair, because what we can do is if we smooth them down on this side, we might create sort of a little sort of rise before the edge, which may not be a bad thing. But actually, to be fair, we are going to come back to that. I mean, some of these paths will have a small wall around them, I'm thinking anyway, so we'll revisit that. But yeah, we'll just get rid of the harshness. I'm going to be quite heavy on this bit here. Bring that down, but we'll probably think of something to cover these edges, probably rocks and things like that. Obviously all the colour is still here from my colour mapping part. Once we've got the smoothing and things done, we're going to erase all of this colour, and it'll be back to standard textures and things like that. Because all the colour essentially does is it's just a tint for the texture, a bit like when you're in the previous video on interiors, where we tinted the tiles and tinted placeables, things like that. That's all it is. You're just tinting the texture. So once you remove that tint, you just have the standard textures. Okay, that's something. We'll come back to the steps momentarily. I just want to get this, and especially these potholes that I've created, this trench that I've got running under here. Just get these sorted out, because they're actually adding to the stretching there. Because you think about it, it's even greater elevation than it actually should be. So I'm just going to jam the mouse button down on this bit until we get some breaking up of the elevation here. I was debating putting placeable cliff faces down along these edges, but I've decided that we're not going to do that. One reason being, I had a look at the placeable cliffs, and unfortunately we can't tint the ones that I particularly wanted to use, and they're not exactly the right sort of colour that I'm after. So that's one reason. Another reason is because they are placeable cliffs, and then you have to slot them in position. They do take up that little bit of extra room, and the nature of this area, it's room that we don't have. So what we're going to do is we're going to create the cliff faces, with texturing, attaching rocks and things like that, and then that way we can texture and tint the cliffs exactly the colour we want, which this will be a reddish sort of rock, a slightly reddish tint to it, all because of the adaptation that we're doing. This campaign's kind of based around there's certain details that we want to kind of stick with, because the image of them in my head was quite good. Okay, so we softened that up, and as you can see already, if you just take a close look at the elevations now, that they're just a little bit, there's a bit of difference. I mean, obviously they're all just one height, and they are all just a sheer drop and things, but there is a bit of variation in how much stretching and things they are, how quickly they pop up, and we'll continue to hone that as we go on, because we're going to be adding further detail to these. So that's that for now. And now we've got these stairs to look at. As you can see, we've just got this sort of hole behind them here, which is no good to us. So what we're going to have to do is very gently, I mean it when I say gently, because there's not a whole lot of room behind these things. I'm just going to get the raise, and it's already on quite a small brush, and we're just going to gently, that will get a top down, and then as soon as we see the terrain start to creep onto the stairs, we'll stop and we'll smooth. So I'm just going to do it in sort of a circular motion here. We've got a bit popping up now, so we're going to stop there. There's still a bit of a gap here, so I'm going to bring that up there. There's a bit of a gap there, bring that up there. Okay, now we really are starting to spill onto there. So we get the smoother. I'm going to go to medium, and I'm going to click once. It's gone slightly, I'm going to click again. Now it's coming out at the bottom. The smoother doesn't always have the desired effect, I've noticed. But there we go, that's done it. I think that was the whole level. I don't know if there's any more under there. But I'm going to check. There is one way of having a sneaky peek at this sort of thing, because if you can get the camera aligned at the bottom, there is another step stuck below the surface there, so we're going to lower the terrain now. So I've just clicked the lower brush right there, and we're going to get a nice small brush like that, and I'm going to click, there we are. But that's a sneaky thing you can do there with the camera. If you can sort of bring it into line, you've got a bit of a rise. If you gently sort of scroll into the terrain, you can see any little details like that underneath. So it's things like that. Usually they're an annoyance when you load an area and your camera's stuck in a hill and you're like, oh, that's horrible, but you bring it out. It's actually sometimes you can reverse purpose that for your own benefit. Okay. Still got a bit of a... That's it. So that's better. Especially as when I was looking at the stairs beforehand, before we placed them, I noticed that we've also got sort of our handrail like things, or just rails for the edge of the stairs, which complement these ones we've got already. So we will place those in as well. So that's another reason why we need the terrain along the edges to be quite smooth, because we want to place those in just to give it a final look. I mean, we'll probably have to trim that back, but just there, but that's fine for now. And now we just need to do the same thing again with this piece here, and also if you notice the top, we had a slight height discrepancy. There's a bit more ground there, so what we're going to do is we're just going to have to make that smooth down into place on the stairs. We might even push the in back, we'll see. So once again, we're going to go with the raise. There's quite a bit more to bring up this time, so I'm just going to move side to side, and we're back up to there now. I'm going to use the smoother and see if we can just push it all in, and we certainly can actually. That went in pretty fast. Then I'm going to smooth the top part, and that's not gone too well at all. Okay, let's bring this back down. Let's raise up here. Till we are crossing the top. There we are, just there. Right, now I want to flatten with the eyedropper. I'm going to get a top-down view. Got a little bit of terrain just sneaking over the top of the step there. We're going to take that one, and then we're going to go small, but we're going to enlarge it just slightly, because the small brush is for terrain painting. It's just ridiculously small. You can't really do an awful lot with that. And I'm just going to paint that into there. So yes, we have obviously overrun the step. That's not a problem. I just wanted that covered in there. What have we got going on underneath? Hard to tell. Let's just get it smoothed out, I think. I'm going to drop the size slightly, and now we can see the top step again. Hooray! Right, and then we're going to go down till I get the next step. Again, just gentle clicks here. We don't want to sort of aggravate the situation. But that's often how I manage to get my staircases tidied up, is just pull the terrain up, raise it, and then just smooth out until you've kind of got the overall shape that you want. Then we just have to get into the sides here and just tidy some of that up. So we've overrun the steps again. We are going to use lower here. And then we will smooth this centerpiece here. And that should give us the full yeah, see, now we've got a bit of a problem here. Sometimes it's never ending, but you get there eventually. That's pretty much spot on. Come on. There we are. And that's good for now. Ground doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. I want a few bits of bumps and unevenness in it. And something we'll do when we do the the pathways and things like that, we will add some little small elevation changes, some unevenness in the ground, because there's nothing I hate more than just flat everywhere. So we'll certainly get that in. I mean, that's a big thing over Neverwinter Nights 1. In Neverwinter Nights 1, the areas were generally very blocky, and there wasn't much in the way of notable elevation changes. But with Neverwinter Nights 2, you can do all kinds of things with heights and use it to your advantage. So we now have full access around what will be this cliffside village now, which is great. And now what we're going to do is just tidy up the little holes and things we've left in this part over here. So I'm going to bring the brush up to medium now. In fact, we'll go with large, and we'll because we don't need so much height change in this bit here, so I'm just going to paint this in here. We're not quite sure what's going on in the background here, but now anyway, what we're going to do is build up from the bottom up anyway. But we may even widen this up and enlarge it, put more of this level around here, but we'll see. Let's break that up for a minute, get rid of the little potholes I've made. There we are. So I'm going to save it here, and then we'll move on to another item.